later.
Both buy first, then sell, or sell first, then buy have their own set of problems.
Yes.
When people offer you, you also offer. Sell first or buy first? This is a common question
yes.
for a lot of HDB upgraders.
Yes. The age-old question.
Many Singaporeans aspire to upgrade from a flat to a condo after the MOP. However, upgrading is a process that involves a lot of careful timing and admin details. Mistakes can be expensive. You might be paying ABSD unnecessarily,
Yes.
or could even lost deposit. The key thing is how to manage your timeline when upgrading from HDB flat to a condo. So the question is, should you sell first or buy first?
To answer your question, we'll be playing out a few scenarios,
Right.
and the very first scenario we'll be playing is buy first and sell
I
later.
think before that, maybe I have to set this question right. For HDB upgraders upgrading to a bigger HDB flat, then this question might not be relevant. Because
that's true.
This is very special to HDB. If you are currently owning a HDB flat and you intend to upgrade to a bigger one or right size or smaller one, because it's still within the HDB context, so the ABSD does not apply.
Yes.
And government has this very nice scheme called Contra. These are schemes to help HDB upgraders when selling a HDB and moving to a second HDB. They did not need that much big amount of cash. So there's a Contra facilities. I will not go into details for this Contra.
Yeah.
This term and glossary will be explained in our another video.
Yes.
To set the context right, this question is more for HDB upgraders looking to buy private properties.
Yes.
That means sell HDB and buy private. That's the context.
Maybe, Dennis, we can start off with the buy first and sell later.
Right.
Okay, now, we'll talk about the pros and cons of buying first and selling later.
Both buy first, then sell, or sell first and buy have their own set of problems.
Yes, have our own set of problems.
No best solution.
No best solution, but at the end of the day, it depends on what suits you better.
So Manny will go through the option 1, 2 for you, and then maybe we'll suggest a hybrid, third option, which
Sure.
should be the best solution.
Let's talk about the positive parts about
Right.
buying first and then selling later. Okay, when you buy first, right, you are rest assured in the knowledge that, hey, I have a replacement flat ready
Right.
when I sell my house. I'm not so worried, because for some owners, they are afraid that, okay, I sell, where do I stay? I'm homeless.
Right.
They are so afraid of that. So this solves your problem immediately, because a unit is already secured before you even sell your property. The second positive thing is that when you choose to buy first, right, the completion naturally, therefore, for the property that you buy will be completed earlier
Right.
than the one that you sell. Meaning to say, you can go into your house first, you can do your renovation first,
Yes.
you can alter and change the outlook of the place entirely, and basically you have time. You don't feel like you're rushed to do your renovation, which is very important because with COVID these days, manpower could be short for some of these renovation
Yes.
companies. So that is one key factor to look out for.
Right.
Now, what about the downside that is to buying and then selling first? Okay.
Right.
Now
Cash flow.
the cash flow. What we mean by that is that when you commit to buy a private property first before selling, you would have to pay what we call the additional buyer's stamp duty. ABSD. For a local couple, which means to say husband and wife, they are both citizens, and they buy the next property, that will be 12% of the purchase price. Now, this ABSD can be put up for remission provided you sell your existing HDB at a stipulated time frame. But however, you still need to come up with the ABSD first.
To simplify this rule, as long as the couple, there's one Singaporean, and you buy a second property without selling first, you have to pay the ABSD with 12%. This amount is called remission. It can be refunded back to you
Yes.
if you commit to sell your old HDB within 6 months after you move into your new private condo itself. So this is called ABSD remission.
In order to be eligible for this remission, right, because as I mentioned, there's a stipulated time frame
Right.
that you have to sell
6
your
months.
6 months, that you have to sell your HDB in order to be eligible for this remission. So that's just something to take note of. But then again, because this ABSD component can be a little bit hefty for certain couples,
It's a
because
cash flow issue.
it's a cash flow issue, because if you think about it, $1 million property, 12%, that's about 120,000 actually. That's quite a lot of money up front there, you know. This method of buying first and then selling really applies only if you have the cash.
It's easy on your time, but hard on your cash flow.
Yes, easy on your time and hard on your cash flow.
And,
So
also there's a second issue for this buy first then sell. The second issue is that assuming that you have a loan for your first property and you need to take
yes.
a second loan for your so-called the second property, then your loan amount might be limited to about 45%.
Yes, correct. So your loan component for your second property will be a lot more less unless you choose to clear the existing loan for your HDB. Then you can take a 75% loan for your private property.
If you're confused by numbers, just understand that for your second home loan, you can only take a less amount.
Yes.
Less than 50%.
To tie it all up, it all comes down to cash flow.
Right.
If in your particular situation, cash flow is a big concern for the family, then maybe this method may not be the most suitable for you.
If cash flow is not an issue, it's good to buy first and sell because you have the luxury of the time.
Now, what about the second method, Dennis, which I believe 90% of people or most people will be more inclined towards?
Second method is a more clear-cut method. You sell away your current property first, then you go and buy a new condo.
Yes.
This will be quite straightforward, meaning that there will be no ABSD.
Yes.
You can use back your CPF and take the max loan. But one question that most people forget is that where do you stay after you sell your
do you
HDB?
stay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Likely they will move back to their parents or in-laws or siblings for that period of time when the transition period, when you sell off your house and then before you move to the next private condo, the transition period, or some people will go to rent for 6 month lease or 1 year lease, which is quite common.
Yes.
So this is option number 2.
Yes.
It's more clear-cut method itself.
Correct. So for people who may not want to do the renting part, right, because it can be a bit of hassle to move 2 times, one to your rental place.
The most complaint is that people don't like to move two
they,
times.
They don't like to move 2 times. So one of the other method will be the hybrid method.
Third method,
which will be
our preferred method.
Yeah, our preferred method,
Yeah.
which we'll be touching on later. But just another thing to talk about for this selling and buying.
Right.
When you choose to sell and then you buy, and if your interim housing or your interim accommodation is to rent, do you realize that suddenly your options open up a lot?
Right.
Because if you choose to rent, you can choose to buy a new launch, because a new launch condo, okay, a new condo takes time to build. Or if you feel, hey, there's nothing in the market, in the resale market that suits my needs and my family at the moment, because how available unit comes out on the resale market is dependent on whether there's a seller for it in the first place. So when you choose to sell and then to rent in the interim period, a lot of option opens up.
I think this option of renting meanwhile might not appeal to many Singaporeans.
Yes.
Because likely it's one spouse might not be comfortable. The thinking is that, hey, husband or wife, why suddenly sell a house go and rent?
Yeah.
That to them, the lack of security is an issue. But if these couples are okay with the idea of, hey, why don't we rent first? Actually, like what Manuel said, we are given an option, new launch or can buy resale, and can even be given the freedom. Hey, I've never stayed in the east side before. Can I move to east side and see whether do I like the place?
Yes.
Because renting, you can rent for 6 months or 1 year, and then if you don't like the place, you can move on to the west or the north or the south, up to you.
Yes.
But I think it might not be for everyone, but for those couples who have open mindset, then this is a fantastic option.
You get to experience what is it like living in a particular area without that heavy commitment.
Right.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, the whole point of this method is so that you do not pay upfront the additional buyer's stamp duty when you're making your transition.
Right.
Yes. That is the main gist of it.
Right.
Now for the third method, Dennis, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more.
I call it the hybrid solution. This is more for those HDB upgraders who are kind of ready to know where you want to buy and you have a place in mind. So I call it the hybrid because you have to sell your HDB and buy a condo concurrently or almost about the same timing.
Yes.
Meaning that in order to avoid paying ABSD, you have to sell off your old property first.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what I propose. I will not go into details, but this is because it might get a bit confusing.
Yeah.
Simply, this is the way. When you sell a HDB, you should also be looking out for the condos that you like. So while you sell, let people view your house. You also view people's house. This is step number 1. Step number 2. After 1 month of marketing, you should know a range for your HDB. Likely between my house is worth say 400 to 500k, that range. So you know that there are offers coming in. You should also be shortlisting to finalize your last 2 or 3 condos or units that you have seen and you like and read the offer. Step number 3 is people offer you the check for your HDB. You can concurrently offer your check to the condo seller when you receive a check for the first one.
Yes.
Yeah. The key thing to note is that you must wait for your HDB buyer to exercise the HDB first, then you can exercise the condo.
Yes.
Because whether you pay ABSD or not, the exercise period is a crucial part itself.
Yes, correct. Because in the eyes of IRAS, whether you have one property or zero property, it all depends on when the option for your HDB flat is exercised. And as long as it's exercised, your property count is considered as zero for the purpose of ABSD calculation.
Right. So timing is very important. Also, bear in mind that your old HDB house must complete first, so that you can have the money to be returned to your CPF or the cash, so that you can have the money to pay for your condo. The whole thing needs a lot of time coordination. For details, give us a call to explain to you how to do this hybrid sell HDB and buy condo almost concurrently.
This timeline actually works differently for a lot of people. Some people may be okay with timeline A, some people may be okay with timeline B. Right. Everyone's situation is different. So if you do not hesitate to give us a call, let us know how we are able to assist you in that case.
In conclusion is that this option number 3 hybrid solution doesn't need you to pay ABSD, right? One key thing to note is that you must ask for a 3-month extension of stay from the HDB buyer.
Yes.
So this is the gist of the whole thing itself.
Yes.
For details, give us a call.
Yes,
We'll
sure.
explain to you. Right.
Sure.
See you in my next video.